Donald Trump maintains his lead over Biden in a brand new CBS News poll. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back into the new video, and today it is time to talk about the 2024 presidential election because, everyone, we have a brand new poll from CBS that shows that while Joe Biden did gain slightly post-conviction, Donald Trump maintains a lead over him. Yeah, that's right. This is a post-conviction poll from CBS, and this should theoretically be the best possible poll for Biden because the conviction is still fresh in the news cycle. It's less than a week old. So theoretically, everyone knows about it. Everyone's going to care the most about it now. But despite that, and yes, Biden did gain. I got to be clear, he did gain slightly in the CBS poll. But despite that, Trump still maintains a lead over Biden post-conviction. Now, before we continue with today's video, I hope you enjoy these type of videos. If you do, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Again, folks, all support is greatly appreciated, and yeah. Now, let us get into it. Among all the factors on voters' minds this election, former President Trump's guilty verdict pales in comparison to issues like the economy, inflation, and the border, all items in which Trump maintains advantages. As such, the verdict has not dramatically reshaped the race. That's the first paragraph from CBS. They admitted right off the bat, yeah, this conviction of Trump, this guilty verdict, it changed nothing. Yes, Biden gained slightly, but when you dig deeper into the numbers, this is at best like a 2-week bump. Like, remember the State of the Union? Yes, Biden had like a 2 to 3 point bump for 2 weeks after the State of the Union, but after that, he collapsed in the polling. And it sounds like the same thing is happening here. But what we do see is a few more Joe Biden voters activated out of opposition to Trump. His vote has become increasingly centered around anti-Trump sentiment, more so than the affinity for Mr. Biden himself. Today, most of Mr. Biden's voters say their main rationale is opposing Trump, and that's up from March. Yeah, so all this guilty verdict, this is what CBS is admitting, and no one's talking about this. Everyone's saying, well, it was a 2-point shift from, I think it was March or something, whatever it was. A 2-point shift or a 3-point shift. They're talking about that. They're not talking about, hey, it appears this shift looks like the State of the Union bump. The same thing's occurring. It's like a 2 to 3 week bump, which it's not that big of a bump. If it's a long-term bump, this should have been a 7-point swing. It really should have been. It should have been a huge swing. So, to a point where, yes, even with it, becoming less of an issue, Mr. Biden long-term gains support. As of now, that's not what's happening here. Whether that dynamic is enough to sustain Mr. Biden looms as one of the central questions of this campaign, a contest that today is essentially tied in likely voter preference, both nationally and across the collective battleground states, which doesn't make much sense, unless you're including states like Minnesota, states like Virginia, New Hampshire, into the battleground states. There's no way in hell Trump can be slightly leading at the national level, but magically, he's tied, or in fact losing, the battleground states. The only way that makes sense is if they included states like Virginia, states like Minnesota, hell, even states like New Mexico. That's the only way it would make sense for this to occur. But maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Either way, the fact that Trump is winning at the national level still means that he's still the favorite. I mean, I just don't see how Trump can win the national popular vote, but somehow lose the swing states? Because you're talking about a 4 to 5 point shift from 2020. So if Trump is doing that much better across the board, how the hell is he not doing great in states like Wisconsin, Michigan, etc.? You could argue, well, maybe there's one swing state that Trump is just doing bad in. Maybe it's a state like Minnesota they included. I don't really know. But the fact that Trump is still winning, and I know, It was a 3-point shift from March or whenever. I forgot the last CBS poll. Whatever. It was like a 3-point shift for leaners. This is a leaning question. Well, despite that, Trump is still winning. It doesn't matter if it's a 3-point shift or not. The fact that Trump is still beating Biden is what matters. The fact that he's still losing despite having the quote-unquote conviction bump, Democrats should be in a complete panic. The fact that they're still losing despite this conviction bump is pathetic. And I know people are going to say, well, maybe things could change in 6 months. Maybe. But if we were going to see a long-term bump because of the conviction, we were promised a 10-point swing. And that's what we should have gotten. With a guilty verdict of that magnitude, you would think, this should save the Biden campaign like people were saying. This should be a 10-point shift. It's at best, as of now, a 3-point shift towards Biden. And he's still losing. He's still losing in most of the polls coming out. So, what do Democrats have? If the guilty verdict changed nothing, especially long-term, if this was a short-term bump, which I think it is, he is absolutely screwed. A majority say Trump's conviction is not a factor in their vote decision. In fact, the trial ranks much lower as a factor when considered on its own than every other issue tested. Yeah, only 28% of voters said Trump's conviction is a major factor in their vote, which, by the way, would be the 7th most important issue in the same poll. The economy is 81%, inflation 75%, state of democracy 74%, crime 62%, the border 56%, gun policy 52%. The conviction of Trump is less important than guns. And this is when it's still the news cycle. This is when everyone's still talking about it. What do you think's going to happen in a month? No one's going to talk about this conviction. That's why when you dig deeper into the numbers, you realize, wait, this bump that Biden got, it's going to last maybe a week or so, maybe 2. But after that, no one's going to care about it. Because as of now, right after the guilty verdict was announced, no one cares. No one cares now, so why would people care in 4 or 5 months? You think people are just going to realize in November, wait, Trump's a convicted felon, I'm going to vote against him. This should be where the Orange Man bad is at its peak. This is where it should be the strongest. And the fact that only 28%, which by the way, most of these people, they're voting for Biden no matter what. The fact that it's changed nothing is pathetic. And look at this. The main reason for supporting Biden, 54% say it's to oppose Trump. Which, by the way, that's up from March when they said it was 47% back then. So it went up 7 points in a couple months. This tells me one thing, that this quote-unquote gain for Biden might just be some partisan Democrats being more anti-Trump than ever. That's entirely possible. I mean, that might explain why it was a 3-point shift, and when you look at the crosstabs, they really don't make sense. You have like a 17-point shift with independents, but Trump is doing like 5 points better with moderates. It's like, wait, what? When you have stuff like that in the crosstabs, I know, crosstabs you gotta be careful with, but I really believe that the only reason Biden gained here is because, yeah, Orange Man bad. I'm gonna vote for Biden just to stop the Orange Man. Moreover, we see this dynamic again in how people frame their vote decision, along the lines of whether this election is a referendum or a choice. When people say this election is just about their view on Trump, most vote for Biden. However, when people instead see this race as a judgment just on Mr. Biden, they vote for Trump. And when they're framing it as a comparison between the two, slightly more voting for Trump than Mr. Biden. Yeah. In other words, people that are comparing the Trump presidency versus the Biden presidency, they are voting for Trump by 6 points. What I gotta say to that? Seriously, what? What can I say? The fact is, if it's a referendum on Trump versus Biden, like who is a better president, this should tell you everything you need to know. Because he's up by 6 points among those that are comparing the 4 years of Trump versus the 4 years of Biden. Here's why that direct comparison right now favors Trump. Trump outpaces Mr. Biden in a range of qualities like being seen as effective, tough, energetic, and more narrowly, competent. Also, more think Trump has a vision of where he wants to lead the country. Mr. Biden does better in personal likability and being viewed as compassionate, but that likability gap does not match voter preferences, because a lot of people who dislike Trump personally are voting for Trump anyway. They've been doing this for years. The fact that some people can't understand this is unbelievable. Trump's favorability has always been bad. People don't like Trump at the personal level, but they like him on policy. And for whatever reason, people cannot comprehend that. It's like, yeah, why do you think people vote for Trump in the first place? Because they like him? No, a lot of people hate his guts, but they like him on the policy side of Trump, not the personal sides. A lot of people think he's a prick. You know, he's an egotistical asshole, but he's actually a good president. That's why people vote for him. That's why you look at his job approval, you know, on like the economy, immigration, it was like 60%. Policy-wise, yeah, people love Trump. It's just the personal stuff, yeah, it's never going to be a good thing for Trump because, well, it's Trump we're talking about. There's broad support for Mr. Biden's recent executive order dealing with the border, including from most Republicans. But despite that, voters who place a high priority on the border are backing Trump by a large margin. Because, yes, people can approve of the executive order, which he should have done 3 years ago. It's the bare minimum. But he only did this because it's an election year. That's the only reason he signed the order. If it wasn't, he still wouldn't have signed it. Which should tell you everything about this clown. The fact that he had the executive order this entire time, he could have signed. And he waited till June of 2024, just 5 months before the election, to finally sign it. Should tell you everything about this guy. But either way, even with the executive order, people trust Trump on immigration more than Biden. Because guess what? Trump was actually trying to solve the issue. He wasn't blaming everyone else for the problem. He was trying to actually solve it. And he was doing a good job. He was finishing the border wall. He had good policies like remain in Mexico. But Biden, he gutted all of that despite Orange Man. And now it's backfiring. But it doesn't matter that now he's trying to fix it. He's not really. He could have done this 3 years ago, the bare minimum. But it's not going to matter to voters' opinions. They're not going to change them magically because, well, it's just not going to. People don't care about one executive order. A nearly 6 in 10 majority of voters say they would favor in principle a new government program that deport all undocumented immigrants living in the U.S. illegally. That isn't purely partisan. It includes a third of Democrats. It rises to 9 in 10 Republicans. Yeah, a third of Democrats propose, or at least support, deporting all undocumented immigrants. Yeah. I just find it so ironic that Biden has screwed up so badly. People are actually taking the quote-unquote extreme position on immigration now. It's not, but people are finally realizing, hey, wait a minute. We have a big problem here. We gotta deport these people. We're not talking about a couple thousand. We're talking about millions of people that live here illegally. And the fact it took the Biden administration to be this much of a shit show should tell you everything about how people think about this election. You now have people saying, yeah, we have to deport all undocumented immigrants. But either way, this poll is just a disaster for Biden. There's nothing good here. Yeah, the 3-point jump in the top line on paper is good, but is that going to last? Is it really going to last the entire cycle? If it was to be a long-term bump because of the conviction, theoretically, it should have been a bigger one. It should have been like a 5-point swing at the bare minimum. But instead, he's getting what? A 3-point shift? Congratulations. That's what you banked your entire campaign on. A 3-point shift that might go away in a week. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.